Hello and welcome to the 51%. I'm Annette Young. In this special edition, we're marking the second anniversary of the Me Too movement. Yes, it has been 2 years since the New York Times and other media outlets began reporting on widespread sexual harassment and assault by powerful male entertainment figures. Like wildfire, the movement quickly spread to politics, the arts, sports and journalism. And the fallout continues. In recent days, opera star Placido Domingo resigned as General Director of Los Angeles Opera amid allegations of sexual harassment that span several decades. So 2 years on, what does Hollywood, given this is where it all began, actually think has been achieved?
I've seen so many changes within my industry, but not just within my industry. I see it in other, like I see it at my daughter's school. I see it in my friends' places of employment. I see it really everywhere, and it gives me great faith that the world that these girls are growing up in is going to be different than the one that you and I grew up in.
What is going on, and what's positive, is we're recalibrating our relationships, behaviors in the workplace, and it's long overdue and needed and a good thing.
Any strides towards more equality for everyone, not just women, but everyone. It's a tricky time in our world right now where people seem to be so frightened when someone has something or someone represents something that I don't know why they feel like it takes it from them. I think there's enough to go around. I think, we're at the beginning of a movement, and I think we have to keep pushing because, you can talk a good game, but you have to wait till it really changes.
I think the Me Too movement, my sister was one of the first people that came out, and I think it's had a ripple effect all across the world, beyond Hollywood. But luckily, there is more representation of women and women of color on television than there was before, but it's still not really equal yet.
In France, the movement's French equivalent, balance ton porc, or squeal on your pig in English, has not had the same impact. If anything, it's the backlash that sparked debate, such as that infamous letter signed by 100 notable women, including actor Catherine Deneuve, denouncing the campaign. Joining me now is Jessica Lichy, an international research professor at IDRAC Business School in Lyon, who's been studying why a number of French people still think the Me Too movement is passé. Jessica, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Recently, Sandra Muller, the French journalist who created the balance ton porc hashtag, was in the news because the man she accused successfully sued her for defamation. Do you think that case would have had the same outcome if it had happened in America or the UK, for example?
It's highly unlikely for a number of different reasons, the main reason being the cultural gap between French society and Anglo society. But we have to remember that the culture is man-made and it's anchored within a legal framework that dictates our behaviour and our thought and our communication processes. There are different ways in which people communicate face-to-face and the ways in which people communicate digitally. So there's more of an inclination to share information, specifically personal information, in an Anglo context, whereas in a French context there is less of an enthusiasm to speak your mind publicly and to denounce somebody or to denounce something that you consider might be the wrong type of behaviour. So that different types of information are shared online in the different cultural contexts, which are protected by the norms of society and by the legislation.
It's also all about privacy here, isn't it? I mean, people want to be very discreet. As you say, they're not really into sharing information at the best of times.
Now, if you look at the research that's been published on how French people communicate using digital technologies, we notice that there is a greater tendency to share political views rather than personal information, and to show what you think, how you behave, what you agree with or what you disagree with. That's very much an Anglo characteristic, not a French characteristic.
But is there a generational difference? I mean, do you see
Absolutely.
With younger people that they're much more likely to be online and talking openly about these issues?
For sure. If we look at the four generations present in today's workforce, so that would be the baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, Gen Y and Gen Z are leading our behaviour and our digital etiquette. And Gen X and the baby boomers are using digital technologies a lot less to find information, to collaborate, to share information, and to post their user-generated content.
And as you write, it's easier to denounce corporate fraud here in France than sexual harassment, isn't it?
Yes, it is indeed.
It comes back to legislation, doesn't it?
Yes, we are hamstrung within the legal frameworks which dictate how and how much we can communicate online.
Jessica, so pinching a line from your research paper, while the French were merely shocked by Me Too, it did, however, send a shockwave through the English-speaking world and also in other nations too, such as South Korea and India. But while the movement made significant noise in India's cities, the notions of consent and sexual harassment remain alien concepts in many rural areas. This report from our team on the ground.
This court in the Indian capital, Delhi, is hearing a defamation case against this woman, Priya Romani. Last October, she accused a minister, MJ Akbar, of sexual harassment. He then retaliated by filing a case against her. Romani faces up to 2 years in prison.
Wherever women have spoken the truth, they have faced backlash. Various defenses are taken. 1, you've defamed me. 2, you're lying. 3, the problem is all yours, not ours.
The fear is that this kind of backlash could further stifle female victims of harassment in a country where already only 1% of them file a complaint.
It's taken centuries for women, years and years for women to come out and explain. If eventually women are going to get convicted for speaking the truth, then it would be a horrific price that they pay.
In October, when the movement began, many Indian women were hopeful about Me Too.
Perhaps the first big casualty of the Me Too movement in Bollywood.
A year after the Harvey Weinstein affair in the United States, a Bollywood actress went public with accusations against a famous actor.
He closed the studio door so we couldn't escape. After molesting me, Nana Patekar planned intimate scenes in the movie that were not originally planned.
More and more women came out to name and shame their harassers. The accused included film stars, politicians, and journalists. But the movement also revealed how little people knew about sexual harassment. This NGO is trying to raise awareness, particularly among young internet users, through their Me Too Twitter page.
So what have we tweeted now?
We've now moved on to what constitutes sexual harassment. The anonymous Twitter accounts who've been saying that, who've been attacking the Me Too India movement, that there is no need for this Western concept, that we don't need this anti-man propaganda. But then,
in a country where patriarchal traditions remain deeply rooted in society, every tweet on this account provokes a reaction.
I think the Me Too movement in India highlighted just how grossly unaware we were as a nation about the concept of consent being the center stone to any interaction, especially sexual interactions.
For many victims, the aggressors are within their own homes. 500 kilometers from Delhi in Lucknow, Mamata Gautam told us her story.
The day I married and went from my parents' home to my husband's house, I thought it was normal for a man to abuse his wife. My husband abused me a lot. There was nobody to really help me at that time.
She was subjected to sexual violence for 8 years. She then met the NGO Humsafar in 2011, but it took volunteers another 3 years to convince her to leave her husband. Today, she is meeting with her lawyer.
The judge has ordered the arrest. They will initiate a warrant soon. Everything will be fine.
2 lawyers and 8 women respond to calls for help from 400 victims each year. This organization is the only one in the area where 100 million women live. Shera Naeem is the founder.
Society tells them that it is very normal. Every woman has to suffer a bit of violence. If he is your husband, he loves you, he will also beat you once in a while, and he'll also do sexual violence. So corrodes the soul of a woman.
While the Me Too movement has helped several women speak out, the stigma associated with sexual abuse means that many women, particularly in marginalized communities, are unable to break down the wall of silence.
And watching that report with me is Jessica Lichy, an international research professor at IDRAC Business School in Lyon, who's been studying as to why a number of French people think the Me Too movement is passé. Jessica, we saw in that report from India, the Me Too movement sort of became somewhat unstuck in a society which is very much traditionally conservative. I'm just curious to know, how much does the Latin male culture play a role in the way in which French people view the Me Too movement?
An enormous amount, both consciously and subconsciously. France is a culture whereby there's a very tall power distance between the person at the top, who is often male, white, middle class, and the person at the bottom. There's also an inclination towards avoiding taking risk. And above all, the theory tells us that France is a very individualistic culture, and the law is made by mostly men.
So, Jessica, what do you think is it going to take to change attitudes here in France?
I think attitudes are slowly changing in the sense that culture changes imperceptibly every decade. So I'm confident that the younger generations will be able to use digital technology in order to be better informed about gender equality and equal opportunities. And I believe that they will be able to disclose personal information when they see that there is a wrong being done.
And there'll be hopefully more women in power, which will make a difference, won't it?
One will hope.
Jessica Lichy, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanette.
And that's it for now. You can also connect with us via our Facebook page, that of course being France24.51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. So until our next show, bye for now.